President Barak Obama causing quite a lot of worries in the stock markets today. Asia deep in the red. We saw the US down just over 2% and basically saying that he'd like to prevent some of the old systems from reoccurring and being put back into the system. Do you think that's the right move?
It may or may not be the right move, but it's politics, and politics at the moment says the bankers are evil, and therefore anything that you do to actually punish the bankers is going to boost your ratings, and that's one of the things that President Obama needs at the moment. His party has just suffered a major defeat in Massachusetts, which it has been successful in for many, many years, decades in fact. It's been like since the days of the first Kennedys, talking about like in the 1960s, that they haven't had a Republican leader or Republican senator from that particular state, and they just lost it this week, and that kind of pressure is basically being felt by the president, and this is obviously something that's going to be populist and it's going to be popular with the people.
It's obviously about the risk-taking the banks are going to be taking on as well. Just looking at the hedge fund policy that President Barak Obama would like to impose, it sounds like a positive system to try and prevent some of the troubles that we've experienced during this meltdown.
Yes, I mean, when it comes to things like this here, you can either make it airtight or you can make it like Swiss cheese. It depends on exactly how you formulate the actual rules that are going to be put in place. And right now it sounds quite bad for the banks, and it does sound quite like they are going to be suffering quite heavily into the future, and that's obviously going to be negative for that sector in the US economy, and that's a huge part of their indices, and that's why we've seen such a big pullback recently. And
coupled with the levy that Obama also wants to impose, clearly it's going to really hamper the bottom line.
Oh yes, I mean, even though the banks may claim that they've paid back their money, what the president is looking at is the entire amount of money paid out, including the stuff to the automakers, etc. And obviously the GM and Chrysler are not going to pay those monies back anytime soon, and so he wants to create a fund that will, the next time we have a crisis, be used to actually fund these kind of expenditures. Obviously, it's going to be quite a bit of money. We're talking about $100 billion over the next 10 years, and $10 billion per year, even for something as profitable as the US financial sector, is going to be quite a bit of money.
Well, the US financial sector, just taking a look at some of the earnings that we've been seeing, doesn't look that rosy at this stage. It's not about the profits, but more about the revenue growth, which hasn't come through as yet.
Oh yes, I mean, the US economy is not in great shape. I mean, they've been floated by huge amounts of liquidity, and that's obviously pushed the markets higher. I mean, when you have cheap money, you can invest in anything and get the smallest return possible, but if you cost you nothing to actually borrow, that's a profitable trade, and that's actually been boosting their economy for the last couple months. I mean, we've seen it since last year. However, once this has been pulled out of the economy, once we have this excess liquidity taken out, what situation is going to be left over, we still have to see about that.
Looking at the stimulus that has been put in place, we know that this is what exactly has pulled us out of the recession, especially when you look at China and the GDP growth that was released yesterday, 10.7% for the fourth quarter. Do you think it's the right time to start tightening the environment?
Well, the Chinese definitely have to. I mean, 10.7%, almost 11% growth, that is just, it's unsustainable even for a country like China. You can't have that massive growth rates without incurring serious threats of having bubbles. People are saying if they don't do something about the growth, about the stimulus package this year, we could have seen 15, 16% growth rates, and that's obviously almost guaranteed to cause troubles in the economy. So obviously the Chinese have to pull back. The Europeans and Americans are not going to have that kind of luxury. There are talks about people saying that we are going to see 6% growth from the US at the moment for this year. I don't think so. I think once we start seeing serious growth come back into the US, we will have inflation come back, and we will have pressure on the Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve, to increase interest rates again.
Monetary policy being tightened in China, causing a lot of negativity. President Barak Obama's talk about increasing restrictions on banks. The markets aren't really enjoying all of this news, so we have seen a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Do you think that these losses are going to be sustainable? Do you think we'll see more losses from here, or do you think it's just going to be a 1 or 2 day issue?
The way the US works is a bit different from the way we work. We have one big party, and that just pushes things through. The US, they have the Senate and they have the Congress as well. So something from the president has to go through Congress, the Senate, etc. And it depends how watered down or how strengthened this proposal becomes as it goes through the procedure. If, like I said, it becomes like Swiss cheese in the end, then the banks will definitely not be suffering too badly. However, if it does go through exactly as he says it is going to be quite negative for those big banks.
The regional banks in the US, though, are doing quite well. Some of them up about 30% the whole of last year. So the regional banks enjoying gains, but it's the big banks in the US that are under pressure. How do you think it's going to impact our South African banks?
Well, the US system is a different system from what we have. There are very few really huge banks out there that cover the entire country of the US. They have smaller community banks. In South Africa, we have 4 big banks. And one of the problems the US has is that the banking system may have been just a bit too competitive. It's just too difficult to make money, and therefore they had to invest in risky assets. In South Africa, we have a very uncompetitive system, no matter what the bankers may tell you. They charge you rates that you would not be seeing anywhere else in the developed world, virtually. And that allows them to be these huge, fat behemoths, basically, that are able to go through the lean times. So they aren't as fragile as the US banks are. And that's a strange thing. If you notice, the banking sectors in the world that are the least competitive, like the South Africans, or for instance the Australians, the Canadians, they have huge big banks that basically dominate the economy. Those went through the recession quite nicely. It was those countries that had the more competitive banking sectors that actually had troubles, because they had to be more competitive, and therefore they had to be riskier to make money.